Yeah, so having been a refugee from East Germany, and of course also my stepfather uh, being a car mechanic, and they had a petrol station. We lived behind a petrol station in a flat, and so the theme of traveling was, or having a car, which was quite a privilege in East Germany. But when we came to West Germany, of course, I had two fathers, the stepfather and my real father. Traveling was again a way of escaping the harsh reality of being a very poor refugee. And that restlessness just carried on. Um, my whole working life, I have been traveling, doing these painting holidays where I take people to places, and and that suits my mentality. The moment I can't do that, I get really anxious and nervous. I need to get out. I need to go somewhere. And even so, I have roots here, very strong roots in Britain, and this is my home, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I still need to break out very frequently and go somewhere, and not just as a tourist. That's the interesting thing. I like to go and actually work where I go, or visit people I know, rather than just going sort of blindly, which, that typical holiday stuff, of course, I've done as well. But the older I get, the less of the holiday stuff I did, and more just going to do something, to paint, or to meet people I've worked with previously. But that restlessness definitely comes from having been uprooted as a child. I was 7 when we left East Germany, and that's a very conscious age. You understand quite a lot at that time, especially the social deprivation, how you suddenly are at the bottom of the pile of society. You really feel that as a child, and then that carries on for quite a long time, and so that is quite obvious. And then all the different sort of activities, having a sailing boat meant you could even go onto the sea. You didn't just have to stay on the road. And so we had a sailing boat when I was a small one. We were 5 children, and some of the children stayed at home with relatives, and some went on holiday. And the boat was on top of the roof rack, and it was a small sailing boat. And that was what I first encountered as a child. And then, of course, sailing was always there because of that. So when I was in Berlin, I had friends who had a sailing boat, and you went sailing on the lakes there occasionally. And I went with one friend who's still sailing on larger yachts as well, in Holland, on the IJsselmeer. And of course, when my father worked in Nigeria for 5 years, I went out there to visit them for a couple of months. And we went to the English Sailing Club. He managed to get in there, and went sailing from there, which was particularly traumatic, in the sense of that it's very scary. Because the current in the Lagos Lagoon is so severe, yet you can't sail out with a smallish boat. And so you need a tugboat that takes you out of the current, out into the open ocean, and to be just with your father and you in the open ocean in a small boat is really scary. But he was the adventurous type, and so I always trusted him in all those things. And but yeah, scary, and that feeling. So I can imagine how people feel in a boat, having been taken. I mean, I trusted my father, but then these people have paid somebody they also trust to take them across. So they don't realize how dangerous the journey is. I at least knew what a boat is, and and it was my relative. But I can imagine if you're not in that situation, how scary that is. And what my father did as well, and I have that in the poem, he, at some point, we were out in the ocean, and he said, you hold the sail. He never taught, of course, taught me to sail, because I'm a woman and women don't drive or, do anything like this. So he said, hold the sail. So me, totally incompetent. I'm going for the swim, and he jumped overboard. And so I was completely left by myself on the boat, not knowing very well that I can't handle it if a sudden wind comes or something. And he was sort of swimming around, at a slight distance. And I thought, if he, for some reason, suddenly can't make it in time back to the boat, I can't turn the boat around. I can't do anything, And that was one of those moments where you realize what it means to be in that sort of situation, completely at the mercy of the forces around you and the people that you can't trust. And my father was, of course, to some degree, objectively, not really trustworthy, because he did these crazy things, which would be very unpredictable. And so I have some of these boat journeys which come into it. And then I had a rubber dinghy with a little motor on the canal in Berlin, because I lived in Kreuzberg, really just across the canal. And my brother had given me the boat because he didn't want it. So I could carry that myself down to the water and then just paddle along a little bit, sort of with champagne and paper on a Sunday. So I have these, boats sort of going through all these other traveling refugee feelings. And it's all sort of mixed up in a bundle. And I'm trying to sort of process it in some way where you can get the feeling for it, basically, if you know what I mean.